Welcome to English Literature for Everyone. Today we will discuss The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. It is an important essay when we study about absurdism. In Lucknow University MA English Semester 2's syllabus, only chapter 1 and 4 are included. However, I will go through all four chapters in detail as it would better help us understand Camus' point of view. I have divided this class into two parts. Part 1 will contain chapter 1 and 2, and part 2 will have chapter 3 and 4. If you want me to cover topics from your university, college, let me know in the comment section below. If you like my explanation, share the video with your friends. So let's begin. Before we start with the explanation, as usual, let's discuss a few details about the author. Albert Camus was Algeria-born French writer who also worked as an editor in a newspaper called Combat. This might be important from net point of view. He was famous for promoting absurdism through his work like Plague, Stranger. Another important thing to note is that absurdism was started by a philosopher named Soren. He was a Danish philosopher. Albert Camus only made absurdism philosophy popular in literature after World War II. Now, a little bit about the essay. So, as the title suggests, Sisyphus was a Greek mythological character who was punished by God to push a large boulder up a steep hill. However, whenever he would reach at the top of the hill, the boulder would roll back to the ground. Sisyphus was stuck doing this pointless labor for eternity. Now, Camus uses Sisyphus' story to tell us how absurd human life is, how pointless human life is. As I've stated, this essay has four parts, namely absurd reasoning, absurd man, absurd creation, and the myth of Sisyphus. Myth of Sisyphus, the final chapter, only has one part. The rest, three chapters, are divided into multiple subsections. So let's start with our first chapter. In the first chapter, absurd reasoning, there are four subsections that I have named here. At the very start of this chapter, Camus talks about the problem of suicide. He says that it is a philosophical problem where a person wonders whether the life is worth living or not. Right? He also states that this particular problem cannot be resolved by religion or by having a higher purpose. The only way people can overcome this problem is by learning to live with the absurdities. They have to accept the reality that the life inherently has no meaning and they have to learn to live with that. Now, it is an act of confession, Camus states, where a person admits that their life has no value or meaning, right? Basically, the life is not worth living. This is why some people take the step to take their own life. So it is like an act of confession where they admit that the life is not worth living. As per Camus, absurdity is feeling disconnected with one's life, right? You do not feel value in your own life as you once used to feel before, and you do not associate your memories with something valuable or hope for a better afterlife or even a better future, right? Camus also states that it is like he wants to see whether is an appropriate answer for absurdity. Like once you realize that your life has no meaning, it has no value, should a person take their own life? This is the question that Camus is asking. Now, people define themselves based on things that they want to do or based on things that they wish they want to have, right? Based on their impulses, people define themselves. The idea of absurdity enters in our life when we start asking questions why we are doing something, right? We start asking the purpose of each and every action that we take. So, absurdity, this idea of absurdity enters in our mind when we start pondering whether what is meaning of our action, what is meaning of our goals, what is meaning of our thoughts, right? And like Sartre, Camus says that whatever we see is real. If I can see something, if I can touch it, I will understand that it is real. Anything other than that is a human made concept. The concept of eternity, the concept of reincarnation, the concept of God, each and everything are not seen by humans, right? So the Camus says that all of these concepts are essentially human-made concept. We do not have a concrete proof of it. Now, here's a quotation. The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. Right? So, in this particular quote, what Camus is trying to say is that we as a human, when we live in this world, in this absurd world, we are struggling to basically find a meaning in our life, and while also knowing that the life inherently has no meaning, right? We live in a world that has no meaning, but we are still constantly trying to define it, and we are still constantly trying to put value to things, to our actions, to make a sense of it. Now, uh, the word absurd means illogical, right? But Camus says that the feeling of absurd is not same as the idea of absurd. The feeling of absurd is the feeling of nothingness. You know nothing matters. You know there's no value to your life, right? Nothingness is not illogical. It is actually a very rational idea. This is what Camus says. He also says that religion often tries to solve absurdity, right? By introducing us the concept of God and heaven and reincarnation, whatever the religion may be, they try to solve this problem of absurdity. However, Camus says that this particular approach that religion often takes is very evasive. You know, they are trying to avoid a problem, they are not trying to confront the problem, they are trying to deflect the issue. So, in order to resolve a problem, we have to understand how to live a life where we know it has no meaning, right? So, we need to learn how to live an absurd life. That is the only solution. Now, in order to define absurd reasoning, like how an absurd person reasons with the nothingness of this world, Camus introduces three important terms: revolt, freedom, and passion. Now, let's start with revolt. Revolt is basically realization that our life has no meaning, right? And it is a state of awareness that a person gains after they come to this realization. Okay, basically, a person starts questioning their life and they realize that there's no meaning to it. So they decide to revolt against the status quo. This is what revolt is. Now, here Camus answers his question is an answer to the absurd life, and he says it is not an answer to absurd life because, like religion, so a person takes their own life, they are also avoiding the reality, right? They accept that okay, fine, my life has no value or it is not worth living. But instead of trying to confront a problem, they try to take their own life. They try to escape from the truth, right? So this is not a so basically here Camus answers his own question. It is not the solution to absurdism. Now Camus talks about the paradox of God, right? He says that if God is responsible for everything, the destiny, the fate, everything, then God is also responsible for all the bad things that have happened in humanity, all the evil things that have happened in the humanity, right? However, if people are free to make their own choices, then maybe the God is not very powerful as it is presented in stories or in mythology. So, this is the paradox of God that Camus points out in his essay. Now, he discusses the concept of freedom, and he basically says that this particular stage comes right after the awareness that people get will realize what true freedom means, right? And he basically talks about how even though we say that okay, I'm making a certain choice based on my goals or based on my role in society, we are still confining ourselves into certain image. I'll give you a good example. For example, if a person says that they are a good father or they are a good mother, right? They often have to make decisions to fit their role. They cannot do everything according to their own will. They have to maintain certain boundaries, certain social boundaries, in order to be perceived as a good mother or father. So they cannot say that they are completely free in their life, right? They cannot say that they are confided in an illusion of freedom. They are not completely free. And Camus basically says that when a person breaks this illusion of freedom, they are actually truly free. This is the freedom that he's talking about. Now, coming on to the last term, Camus talks about how to live an absurd life. So he said this suicide is not an answer, right? It is evasive. So how should a person live an absurd life? So he basically says that absurd lives can only be lived when a person finds the purest joy in the present moment. Basically, you have to enjoy each and every moment and live it with full passion. This is the only way you can enjoy an absurd life. So this is the end of chapter 1. Now coming on to chapter 2. Again, this particular section is also divided into 4 parts. The first is Absurd Man, the second is Don Juanism, the third is Drama, and the fourth is Conquest. So, in this particular section, Camus talks about what does he mean by an absurd man. If he calls someone that this particular person is an absurd man, so what does Camus actually mean? So, this is what we will discuss in chapter 2. So, according to Camus, an absurd man sees things rationally. They do not indulge in nostalgia or blind faith. For absurd man, the only moral code that would be worth following is the one given by God. However, they do not believe in the concept of God. Like, if they have not met God, how can they believe in it? As I have stated earlier, the only thing that they can see and the only thing that they can feel, basically touch, is the only thing that they believe in. So, since they haven't seen God, they do not believe in the moral codes. Uh, he also says that while absurd man might not believe in God, they believe in rules and laws that are important for smooth functioning of society. Right? If they think rationally and if they want to live their life to fullest and if they want to live in a sense of security, basically it's a human instinct to protect yourself, right? So they will follow certain rules and laws in order to maintain the smooth functioning of society. So even if someone does not believe in God, it does not mean that they do not follow any moral code, they do not follow any ethical code. Okay, this is what Camus is talking about. Now, he talks about the character of Don Juan who fits the mold of an absurd man. Okay, in case you don't know about Don Juan, he was a famous character in Spanish literature. Essentially, he was a con man who would seduce women, live off their wealth, and would eventually run away whenever he was caught. The reason why Camus considers him an absurd man is because he lives in the moment. He does not think about his future or how he's going to get caught or how often events are being repeated multiple times, right? He lives, also he is very passionate with his lovers. He's not just for the money, he's also for the enjoyment, and this is what uh, Camus states, that basically he lives in the moment, he enjoys his life, he does not think what value his actions add, right? And he understands that the life essentially has no meaning. So there's no point of being someone who you don't want to be. He does what he wants and then he runs away whenever he feels like. There's this quote that I've added, which I feel is very fitting with Don Juan's character. Time keeps up with absurd man, right? Absurd man does not go with according to time. That okay, now I am getting to certain age and I have to do this and that. No, time keeps up with the absurd man. Likewise, Don Juan, Camus also considers stage actor to be an absurd man because an stage actor, while he's on stage and he's playing certain character, he passionately lives the life of that character, right? He embodies the experiences of the character he's playing as. Okay, and by doing so, he is essentially passionately living his life, at least for a moment. Okay, and this is what Camus states, that actor in drama is also a good example of absurd personality. Very long ago, that church opposed the idea of acting because it was conflicting with their philosophy of eternal life, right? Basically, what church believed, that the people should have one identity, that they would go with them to their eternal life, and this whole concept of acting did not set well with it. Likewise, the actors, Camus also compares conquerors with absurd men. Okay, But before we start with this explanation, I want to point out that when Camus talks about conquerors, he does not talk about king or emperors. He also talks about anyone who has a burning passion to fight for their goals. Okay, it could be a ruthless businessman who crushes his competitors, or it could be a politician or lawyer who uses dirty tactics to win. Basically, they believe that they want something, they work very hard towards that, and eventually they get what they want. So this is an example of conqueror. Okay, and basically Camus says that uh, when a man is aware of absurdity in his life, when he is aware that his life essentially has no meaning, they can easily enjoy and live in the moment, right? The only people who are afraid of future, who are afraid of the next thing happening, are the people who associate certain value to their life, who associate certain value to their experiences. People who know that there is no value to their life, they live their life freely, they live their life without any worries. So now we come to the end of the chapter second, and I've covered chapter 3 and 4 in part 2 of the video. Do check it out, and for more such content, like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.